Welcome to the On TV studios. I am so pleased to be able to share with you that we have a special guest with us tonight. His name is Marco Muzzi. He is a Sioux boy. He left the Sioux in grade 9, but he has written a fantastic novel, his first published novel, and it's called The Restless Night, and he's going to be joining us via Skype. So welcome, Marco.
How's it going?
Very well, thank you. Now, I'm just going to take a little, take the listeners on a little journey here. So bear with me, everybody, and hang on to your lug nuts. Vengeance begins. Haunted by the unsolved murder of his grandfather, a young policeman takes the case and the law into his own hands. But does he have the stomach for what is necessary to uncover the truth? Well, you can find out shortly, because a very special book, The Restless Night, is about to be launched at the Marconi Club on Friday evening. And with me is the author, all the way from Kitchener, Ontario. So Marco, can you talk to me about the genesis for this book? What was the inspiration for you to write a book about Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and an unsolved crime?
Well, I mean, so I'm from the Sioux, born there till I was about 15. So for me, it's a romantic place in my mind. I have a lot of good memories there for sure.
Right.
You know what? We had, when I was about 4 years old, my grandfather passed away. He died of cancer, which is obviously very unfortunate. And shortly thereafter, maybe a number of years later, someone actually broke into his home and stole a coin collection that he had, along with other things that he had in the home, and never found who did it. And they never found any trace of the coins that were taken that day. And so, honestly, I kept finding myself thinking about those two things. And one day it just sort of clicked to me that if I sort of fictionalize them into a story, it could be something very interesting and compelling. So basically the synopsis you just read was the initial sort of idea for how to take some, unfortunate real life events and turn them into something creative and fun. Fun for me anyways. But,
Yes, and it's interesting because the first chapter, it starts out as a young boy that we first learn about, that we first start to take the journey along this novel with. So how long did it take for you to begin building this narrative and then getting it to completion?
Well, I mean, there have been several times over the last, 5 or so years where I've had the idea to write something. I'm a marketer by trade. I'm always in communications and always writing. So that's never really far from my mind, but I just kind of kept being called to write something creative outside of that scope. And honestly, I used to commute a lot for work. So I'd sit there in the car trying to kill time and I'd find myself just thinking creatively and these ideas came to be. But really, it took 2 years, I'd say, from start to finish, from the time I really sat down and wrote that very first, line of what the plot could be to actually 2 years to the day almost to the book launch on Friday. So it's been quite the journey, actually.
Well, it's wonderful. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of this book. It's going to be a real page turner, judging by the first chapter that I've been able to download. So, are there any place names in Sault Ste. Marie that people can look forward to reading about in the book, The Restless Night?
Well, there's a few. Mrs. B's Pizza, which happens to be my favorite pizza place in town, makes a cameo. The Cross on St. Mary's Hill, or I don't know its actual formal name, but the Cross actually plays a really key role in the story later on. That location, anyways. The Steel Plant makes a reference. The Shady Pine Motel makes an appearance, and obviously the city. I mean, I refer to the city by name at some point in the later parts of the book, but it's very much, it's fictionalized, but it's very much set in the Sioux, and very much for me, I wanted to call on these sort of key, in my mind, key places and things that the city has to offer. The boardwalk as well, the waterfront as well is something I reference too. So yeah.
Right. So, Marco, talk to me a little bit about your background. What are you doing?
Well, marketing. I work for a software company in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, so I do that. Like I said, I've gone to school for marketing. I've been doing that now for the last as a career for almost 10 years now, actually, if I think about it. Yeah, which is really cool. You know, I used to love reading as a kid, and I definitely did it as a young adult, but I sort of got away from it for a while. I've started to come back to it now, obviously, and now that I've actually when I started and now that I've finished it, this book, I've started to really work more on the writing craft. So I've been taking more courses and training and things like that, just to learn more about it, to see what else I could do for future versions or sequels, rather, to the book.
Excellent. So there may be a repeat. The main character, we may see this main character again in an upcoming novel.
I think so. I think I won't ruin it for you, but there's definitely a plan in my mind to keep it going. So you'll see when you get to the end.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your family, because I understand that you have some cousins that live here locally.
Well, just about my entire extended family is up in the Sioux. So
Okay.
you know, both sets of grandparents immigrated from Italy to the Sioux. My grandfathers worked at the steel plant. And my parents met up there and got married up there, started a family obviously up there. So everybody's there. So for me, it's definitely, you know, I love the Sioux. It's my home, and you know, to come back there is not just sort of a place. It's where the family is, and where the love is and stuff like that. So it's yeah. I mean, you know, my cousins are my entire family, aunts and uncles. Everybody's played a role pretty much in. Not only the launch coming up on Friday, but as you'll get into the book, there's some characters that that were inspired by them as well. So everybody's been supportive, everybody's been fantastic, and I hope that I can show them the due appreciation as I go through this process. But yeah.
Right. So I'm sure that they will all be out to the Marconi Club tomorrow night, and I think it starts at 8:00 if memory serves here.
8:00, and we'll be in the Marconi Lounge, in the lounge specifically. But yeah, it's. I think we're gonna have a little bit of a crowd. It's gonna be nice.
Yeah, I sure hope so. So we're gonna take a quick little break here, and then we're gonna come right back to you, Marco. So hang on, and we'll be right back in the studio with On TV. Welcome back to the On TV studios. I'm here with Marco Muzzi via Skype, and Marco is talking to us from his new digs in Kitchener, Ontario. So Marco, talk to me about the process that you went through to decide that you're deciding that you want to write a novel. What was the process like for you?
Well, I think you know, the idea kept coming to me over and over. So I sort of decided at some point, this is something I want to do in my life. I want to, you know, write a story, a novel, a book. And I just want to do it. I just want to say that I've done it and get sort of these creative thoughts down on paper. And honestly, you know, I just sat down one day and I made an outline for this story, for the book. And I started thinking about it, and I wrote some bits and pieces here and there, you know, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, an hour, maybe an afternoon, you know, over a span of days, weeks, months. And I would constantly think about it as I was driving, as I was, you know, having any downtime, listening to music. You just sort of get the ideas coming. And I would make these notes along the way and sort of start piecing them together. And it was actually kind of funny when I did finish the book and I sort of look back at what it is, or what it became from where the original outline was, to see how different they were. Was kind of funny. It was almost like the outline was a good starting point, but pointless ultimately to where the flow of the story took me. But yeah, I did a lot of that myself in spare time, obviously after hours, and eventually I finished a manuscript and decided that I'd share it with a few people. And I shared it with some people who have some writing backgrounds, like they've written before, or they're in that sort of world. And they said, no, honestly, you have something that you could publish. So I hired an editor, and I got it edited a few times, and then decided to go ahead and publish it. So yeah, like I said, it took about 2 years start to finish, but it was a great learning experience.
And tell me about the publishing company. Who is it published through?
Well, I've published it myself, so it's a self-published book. I did take a long time to decide whether or not I was going to pursue a publishing company or do it myself.
Right.
Ultimately, after talking to other authors, people who have done both, I decided that this was a story I really wanted to tell my way.
Your own way.
I wanted to avoid some of the challenges that might come with a publishing company the first time around. So so I went this route.
And the cover of the book itself, the graphics on the book, did you reach out to someone special for that, or is that your handiwork as well?
No, I can't claim credit for that. I was going to hire someone, and then I mentioned it to a friend of mine who was a graphic designer by trade, and he jumped at the opportunity. My friend Rob Ikoka to do it, and I think he did a great job.
Yes.
I had 3 or 4 requirements, and he gave me a bunch of samples, and I picked the one I like, and what you have in front of you is pretty much it. So yeah, I couldn't be happier with it. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I want to take a second, and I'm just going to read the first few lines, if you don't mind, Marco.
Sure.
And so I can introduce the book, the first chapter, to our listeners. It was like every other Sunday. Who knew it would be the last? The sun shone brightly in the clear blue sky above, and the sting of fall's air licked my cheeks as I sprang from the van. I ran with childish glee towards the house, the brown brick of my grandparents' home nearly a blur as I rumbled past, moving so quickly my little feet almost tripped on themselves. Now that really grabbed me when I first read that. I had to read it again because I think we can all see ourselves in this story. At the very beginning, we've all been little children wanting to see our grandparents, and you just can't wait to go see them. And I won't read any further. I'll wait for the book to come out for the rest of our listeners to get the book. But yeah. It's certainly a remarkable entry into the novel.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's pieces of it that people in different stages of their life, for whatever reason, can hopefully find relatability to and sort of picture themselves in. It's going to be a journey for folks to read, for sure, in a good way. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So, well, we will look forward to being down at the Marconi Club on Friday night and coming to get our hands on a copy of that book. And I encourage all of our listeners to get out to the Marconi Club at 8 o'clock Friday night, this Friday, and go and meet Marco. He'll probably sign a book for you.
Absolutely.
And you can meet the extended family that inspired some of the characters in his novel.
They'll definitely be there too, so yes.
All right, so you're going to be heading on the highway tomorrow, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm going to leave tomorrow night after work and drive up, and it's a drive I've done many times, but I assure you this time I'll have a much bigger smile on my face as I'm getting closer. So, yeah.
No doubt. You're going to return to work as a conquering hero, published author.
Yeah, sure. Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Marco, thank you very much for taking some time with us today, and we'll look forward to getting our hands on a copy of that book.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much for this. I really appreciate it.
It's been a real treat to talk to you, and I would like to encourage all of the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie to get down to the Marconi Club on Friday night at 8 o'clock. Join the Muzzi family in celebrating the first published novel by Marco Muzzi, and it's set in Sault Ste. Marie, so you'll find some little tidbit geography places buried in the novel.